As we know, life is full of surprises, both good and bad, and the day-to-day journey is full of unforeseen obstacles, and sometimes it's hard for us to see our way through. Beyond the normal mundane are where unscripted dreams live. Join us for thought-provoking discussions and interviews to help us navigate through the fog and create our own path. We are the Unscripted Dream Podcast, operating outside the margins to motivate and inspire our audience. So, if you're watching this on YouTube or wherever you may be watching this, if you're able to, make sure you hit that like button, click on that subscribe button if you haven't already, depending on what platform you're on. And of course, most importantly, copy that link and share the wealth. I think a lot of people can benefit from what's being said, whether they learn something from us or not. It also lets them know where their head should be at. So, moving forward, episode today is titled Sign of the Times. Sign of the Times. When you think of Sign of the Times, you might be thinking about the Prince album, or you may be thinking about some other type of music. Sign of the Times, it's just a reference. Sign of the Times, man. It's the sign of the times. Things is changing. We're going through a big change here on a bunch of different levels here in America. So when we want to dive into some of the more bigger things to talk about, let's talk about cultural shifts, because that's literally what's happening right now as we speak in front of us. If you have been living in America for the past, not even 20, the past 10, 5 years, there has been a significant change in a lot of things. So I think one of the biggest things to think of is society and attitudes with society. There's been a lot of breakthroughs. So when you think about breakthroughs, talking about social justice movements. So think about some of the highlights of people with gender rights, gender roles. There's been a huge breakthrough with that as far as racial issues and society issues. Those have been brought to the front a little bit more in recent times. And there's been some progress made, and other times it's work in progress. But nonetheless, what I'm trying to say is there have been some significant societal changes. When you think about COVID, that was almost like that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Everybody went crazy and everybody basically expressed how they felt. And we got a chance to see that more vividly than ever in recent times. So I don't know. It's just that age or the era of movements and social movements and give account with our technology. Things have been pushed to the front, and they also fuel the media. Anything you want to speak on from or about societal changes, Marcus? How they've impacted you per se, or how they've impacted things that are going on right now?
I know, if you listen to this show long enough, I avoid talking about all that stuff. There's a reason why I do it, but I think that look, it's a lot of people,
You don't have to
right?
provide your personal opinion per se, but
It's
of
a
course, yeah,
well, no, I'll explain. It's important to know why I don't talk about it too, but
yeah,
like there's a lot of people, and by human nature, the more people you have, the more problems you're gonna have. Whenever you add a group, like just a sheer number of people to a group, the dynamics change.
yep,
So it's called group dynamics, right? But there's things that are inherent, like that we just have as people that will always come out. I don't think you can ever eliminate people being greedy, people looking out for them, like for themselves over others, people that are gonna like put themselves into certain groups and want to be separate from other people. I mean, it's like we see it at every level, and that's you kind of get into like the classism and all that stuff. But as long as you have people, as long as people are around, there's going to be symptoms. Like you're just going to I think we're just going to have to deal with some of this stuff. And I think just the severity of or how things are experienced will change. Uh, Maybe the volume and the intensity will change, but it's just people. Like people are always going to do. You might have like live in an HOA, and the HOA might just because there's 4 people in the HOA or 4 or 5 people in the HOA, they might try to like use their power to put somebody out the neighborhood or make somebody's life miserable or something like that. That's people. Like you have 10 people in a room and there's 1 to 2 people that wear the color green. They'd be like, well, I like green. There's going to be people that like blue. They'd be like, well, I like blue. And now they beefing because they like 2 different colors. Like it's really that simple. And that's
Yeah,
and that's why I don't like people who, what's something else that is like people get mad if you don't like Taylor Swift or Beyonce or something. Like people get like, oh, they cook themselves up. I'm like, you don't even know these people. Like, are you getting in fights and canceling people because of that? And that's what I'm saying is that, like, that's why I don't talk about it because, like, that stuff's completely out of my control. But what you can control is the group of people, the small group of people that, like, you're around. And I think that there are, like, maybe some larger, like, macro type changes. But I don't know. I don't know. I just think that sometimes the energy is put in the wrong direction. It's not put in the
yeah,
right place or it's not put in the place that is going to produce the most amount of change. Like you can sit there and watch the news and they could talk about how, what's something that gets talked about in the news a lot? You know,
war.
I don't know what yeah. So you can sit there and watch the TV, but what are you doing after you watch TV? Like that's my thing. Like after you watch it on TV, like how many hours of that can you watch? And what influence do you have on the outcome? And what influence does that have on you?
And every
And
hour on the hour, it's going to be the same story.
so that's what I was like, that's what I'm saying. That's why I talk about stuff that you have more influence on. Now, if those are one of your battles that you're fighting, that's fine. Uh, but that's why I kind of stay out of that stuff. Someone's always disagrees with you. They like, you like blue cars and I like red cars. So I hate you because you like blue cars, and that's how it feels to me.
Yeah, man. That's one of the so when we talk about trends, we just talked about social movements and you just gave your whole reasoning of how easy it is to create a divide between people or groups or whatever, association you may be affiliated with, you know, um, that's moving forward to geopolitical changes, how we mentioned in the news. Like the most common thing you see right now is war. I'm not going to focus on any specific war, but you've heard about it. You've heard about the different wars that are going on right now and how they're trying to mitigate and provide peace. You got some people saying that America should get involved, and you got other people saying that no, America shouldn't get involved. And my opinion doesn't matter. Marcus' opinion doesn't matter. The whole point we're trying to make is all this stuff is a signature of the sign of the times. I'm not talking about revelation or the end of the world or nothing like that. That's not what I mean by that. I'm just saying that there's a huge shift that's going on right now. And I think people should pay close attention to what's happening right now because it's not just happening on a social or societal movement. It's not happening just on geopolitical changes. How about we focus on technology, advancements? Like think about Gen AI. That's the future. Or at least that's what a lot of companies are proclaiming. That's the future, Gen AI. What is Gen AI? Gen AI, generative artificial intelligence. Have you ever heard of Chat GPT before? Well, Chat GPT is basically a technology advancement piece that you can use to enhance your standard of work, your standard of living. Anything that requires you to do something from a digital perspective, it can enhance. It can even answer some questions you may not know. That's how powerful it is. It can code for you. It can do a lot of things for you. So that's where we are as far as what's shifting and what's happening right now. We don't have a grasp on any of this. This is all newfound glory. Do you want to focus further on Gen AI, Marcus?
Yeah. Well, I got some stuff. Well, I just wanted to backtrack there a little bit because I know what I say can be taken the wrong way.
Yeah,
But just because you don't talk about something doesn't mean you don't care about it. It
right.
just means that you choose not to talk about it. Doesn't mean you're not aware. Doesn't mean you don't care. But just because you have an opinion or you have a thought doesn't mean that there's a need to open my mouth and say what I think.
Exactly.
So that's the point that I'm trying to make there is that I have my opinion. I keep it to myself, and that's just is what it is, And I think that that's like, it's okay if you don't have an opinion or you want to keep your opinion to yourself. It's your opinion. You do it at what you want. So that's all. And I think a lot of people get themselves in trouble because they feel like they're forced to say something when they're actually better off just not saying anything.
Yep.
Like, that's really a lot of the things. It's like a lot of things that get stirred up is because it's like, just don't say anything.
Yeah,
And
don't dig
why?
yourself a hole. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, but I mean, is what it is. But yes, generative AI. So I want to actually talk about that in the sense that when you look at technology, right? That this is something like, well, I'll actually share my opinion on,
Go for it.
but, but you look at like some of these recent changes in technology, like think about like health services, like a Teladoc or online gambling, like FanDuel or DraftKings, like in the early, late 1999, early 2000s, like people wouldn't think this is even possible. Like people would
Right.
say you can't make money online. The internet's just for like blogs and like weirdos or whatever, was being said. And you look at something that people really enjoy. That's really like, look at fantasy football. I know this isn't like world changing, thing, but look at fantasy sports. Look at that market. That market did not, it was very like niche, didn't do much. It wasn't, the profit levels they weren't the greatest, but I was looking at a report and, this was Yahoo Finance, and they reported that the fantasy sports market is estimated to be worth 56 billion in 2030. So that wouldn't be possible without some of these advancements in technology. And like last year, at least in what the U.S. that market, just to provide some context, is that last year it was estimated just in the United States that market was worth 9.4 billion. So that's quite a leap. And when you think about like AI, like Joe's mentioned, this generative AI, you think about the things that we couldn't do before, and then think about the things we couldn't do before, the things we could do now. Now think about the things that you can't even conceive in your mind that will exist, but we just don't know right now. So nobody thought that we would be able to jump on FanDuel. Actually, we could listen. Fun story. I actually like FanDuel like quite a bit, so much that I got to stop because I was having a good time spending too much money.
It's a
Like I
good
did,
time.
So, but that's what I'm saying is that those experiences that wasn't available. Like people who
Not
didn't
even
have
5
friends.
years ago.
Yeah, and it's like, think about people who like socially awkward, have a hard time making friends. You couldn't always play with these many people like games, entertainment online. You couldn't do that. So these are things that we didn't think were possible. Now this is like every day. It's like normal for us. Like us being able to do this pod the way we are right now on video in two different locations, that wasn't possible. You being able to work remotely wasn't an option. So to just, I guess the point I'm trying to get across is that there will be things and experiences that are created as a byproduct of these advancements in technology. And I think that it's important to understand that these things, there are people right now who have a vision for it and they're building it, but there's people right now that also don't think it's possible. And it's like, well, what side do you want to be on? And that's really like you could hate it and get left behind, or you can accept it, get on the train. There's some things you can do investment wise that I do, but there's things professionally you could do as well. So it's just a ton of opportunity. It is. And that's my question for you, Joe, is I guess what's the most interesting thing right now? I mean, you mentioned generative AI. What's the most interesting thing to you right now with these technological advancements?
As far as technology, I think Gen AI is definitely like a wow. Uh, I know a lot of people think that Gen AI is going to replace jobs. It won't. It's just going to help you get better at your job. That's how you got to look at it. People think like in a call center or something, oh, I'm gonna lose my job because of Gen AI. No, you're not. They're still going to need you. You're just going to have Gen AI implemented in the programs that you already use. So that way, when you get off of a call, they already then drafted or summarized the call for you. And all you have to do is click a button and then it's already documented and you can move on to the next call. That's called call optimization. So when you get off the phone and you read over the prompt of however the Gen AI summarizes the whole conversation, you hit submit on the button, then you move on to the next call and get you back out there. That's call optimization. That's saving money. That's utilizing and putting you to work. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how you get more bang for your buck. You know what I'm saying? That's probably one of the holdups in call centers is documentation. So just imagine what Gen AI can do for you as far as that. Um, but I'm going to explain and shift this a little bit as far as technology. I think one of the wow factors for me outside of generative AI definitely would probably be, I would say quantum computing, but I think that's a little too nerdy. So I'm gonna save that one. But let's focus on something else I'm impressed with. Money, digital currency. So I know we talked about digital currency a few times, but we're actually making breakthroughs as far as digital currency. Why is our money not digital? You know, everything else is digital right now. Doesn't it make sense for our money to be digital too? Think about that. So when you think of things like cryptocurrency and stuff, you know what I'm saying? Like, I can go on and on about this. Marcus definitely can because he does more research than I do regarding this. But we both come to a consensus of like the method of how our trade and barter system when it comes to money is out of whack, is outdated. You know, everything is a transaction of a button from a phone. So how come your money can't be digital too? Yeah, you can argue up and down and say, oh, well, what about Cash App? That's digital. Yeah, true, it's digital, but at the same time, how they work behind the scenes is say you send some money to someone. Haven't you noticed that they give you a prompt? If you want that money instantly, you take a hit or receiving that money, or you can wait X amount of days to receive that. That's because the money system, the money trade system is way behind the curve. So when you think of like these new technologies with cryptocurrency, you can send some money all the way over to a different country and they receive it probably within, I don't know, less than a minute, depending on what it is, versus
Yeah.
if you send over $100, even if you send over $50 and you try to send it overseas somewhere, they ain't gonna see that money for a couple of days. That's bad. So this is why you see rich people have their money normally allocated in different spaces so they can get around that. If you're a tycoon where you're a billionaire, I promise you, if you're a billionaire, you have your money spread out through a whole bunch of different banking systems so you can move it around as fast as possible. And I only know that because I've done my research and I've seen how people move their money. Not saying I study them, but what I'm saying is that's how you got to think when you're on that level. So for a technology to be brought to us and in front of us, and prove that it can translate and send currency within less than a minute to somebody else's account, that's groundbreaking. And that's why people are afraid of it just because of the power of that. And on top of that, there's more security in it too, because it's less likely somebody's tampering with your money. When you think about putting your money in a bank, your money's being tampered with. That money ain't yours. It's yours, but it's borrowed, if that makes sense. So if you put your money in the bank, you can't just go ahead and pull out all your money if it reaches a certain point without you having to go through a whole bunch of loopholes to get your money on demand. But I'm not going to go further down that road because that ain't what this episode is about. But the point I'm trying to make is technology, crypto, look into it. It's going to be the future of how we're going to create some type of national digital currency. It's already in the works right now, but you got to do your research. But I think that's the more so the wow factor for me as far as sign of the times.
It's pretty interesting. I guess for people who say like digital currency and all this, like there's an issue with it. Do you think when you send somebody $30 in Cash App, that somebody's jumping in the Brinks truck and moving that money to the bank? Like,
For
so,
$30?
so, so there's already a digital element to the money. It's also zeros and ones. It's sitting on the ledger, a digital ledger already. Like, how do you think, like, I'm not even about to get into it. You can already tell I'm getting it. but, but, so what I'm saying, what I think about is that People created paper money. Well, started of course, just the evolution very quickly here, very quickly. The evolution started with barter. Like you had some eggs, somebody have for cheap, whatever, cheap wool, whatever. That was an equal exchange. But what happens is that when you have enough eggs, you have enough sheep's wool, you need something else to trade. You need something else. At that point, that barter system becomes ineffective. So you need to implement something that you can agree is a medium of exchange. It's actually going to hold its value. So that's where you start to get like money and coins and like you have silver and gold and things like that. But who created those systems? People. Who created the ledgers they were using? People. So to think that who created the dollar, like whatever fiat money you're using, who created that? It was people. So to have, I guess, that limitation in your mind that the same species of individuals that created the barter system, that created the OG money isn't capable of creating the evolution of money. And then I think sometimes people just think we've hit peak evolution and there's nowhere else to go. That's the issue that you have, but you're listening to the show. We're not. I mean, we already know, but it's one of those, it's just one of those things to where you think it's impossible, then it happens. And it's just, listen, it's already happening. It's not at the
The
scale
pace. Yeah.
that, yeah, that's it. But I don't want to get into like settlement and all that, but I'm gonna leave it there. I'm gonna leave it there. But
Okay. Well, how about this, man? I know that we're running on time, so let's try to wrap this up, man. So when you think of why should you care, what happens to those we choose to ignore these changes? Um, how can you apply that to cultural shifts?
wait, can you ask that question again?
Yeah, so the question is, why should you care what happens to those and what happens to those we choose to ignore these changes? So I'm guessing the question that I have pre-written here is, why should you care what happens going forward with these cultural shifts? Like, why does that matter? And
Hmm.
what happens if we choose to ignore these cultural shifts going forward?
Well, that's at your own risk. You have to choose what you either get left behind or you just, like you just, it's like the country, it's like the movie, No Country for Old Man, when he's sitting at the table at the end and he like, I can't catch him. Like I couldn't catch him. That's it. Like that's what it is. So either you're good and none of this stuff really affects you, and that's the question that you ask yourself. Like, what's the impact? Like, how do the trends affect you? Do you need to adjust your goals? What risk does it pose to you? Like Joe was saying, people are taking jobs. Like it's it's going to create new opportunity. The thing is, what's interesting. I think what's important to understand is that like the one thing about like data and how we're able to like do things with data that we weren't able to do before is that there's all kinds of stuff. And that's why I brought up fantasy football, because that really is a game of data that is we found a way to extrapolate all this information and
Yep.
monetize it. That's a whole, what I just said, it was like a $10 billion market last year in the United States. So that didn't exist until we got to a point to where we could exploit the advancement and make money from it. So what's the next level? Like, yes, jobs will be automated, jobs will go away, but at the same time, new opportunities will be created. And if you're forward thinking, what you will do is, and it's about if you want to survive, or you want to get left behind. Actually, it's to get left behind, survive, or thrive. Maybe those three options. So you pick which side you want to be on, or you could just be a non-player, be an NPC and just not play at all. Um, so it's really up to you what you want to do, because right now there is an opportunity to learn some skills like prompt engineering, learn how to ChatGPT 4, look, that thing getting smarter every week. Either like my intelligence is going up 1 basis point, or the software and how I interact with it is like, it's just getting better, and it's really one of those things where it's like, there's a lot of opportunity and there's people that start businesses. They do all these things that you didn't think were possible. So it is an opportunity. It's like a different kind of gold rush right now for a lot of people. So
On a bunch of different levels. We just talked about with money, if you're really tuned in, you may make a play out of it where you go from rags to riches within the span of a few years. Some people have already managed to do that with the last run of the cryptocurrency. Um, we can even think about with culture, like, you know, Mm. if you're in tune, you can make a play off of that too, or use that to your advantage. Um, one thing we did mention is when you think about like marijuana, like when what, not even 10 years ago, like when you think of marijuana, you're like, okay, this is just a status offense, right? Like this is nothing, right? It should be decriminalized. Why are people getting locked up over marijuana? It really ain't doing much. Look at it now. In a good portion of the states now, it's legal and it's actually being put to use and people are actually using it like it probably should have been used years ago. So, I'm not saying I'm a full advocate and I'm not saying I'm not, but I'm looking at facts and the facts are there. There is some use for that. But what I'm trying to get at is there's a lot of things that are coming to play within the past 5 years where even 5 years ago, you'd be like, no way, this is not possible. This isn't happening. This would never happen. And it happened. What about COVID? Nobody saw that coming. I didn't. I'm pretty sure you did. Like we knew that eventually something would happen, but you don't know when. And we didn't know that the country was going to shut down like that. And mind you, it's not just our country. Practically the whole world shut down. So just think about that, man. So when you think of sign of the times and you think you got a good grasp on certain things, use them to your advantage. I keep going back to the money part, but think about the gambler. Like they're still trying to figure that out as far as the FanDuel, DraftKings, MGM, whatever, where you're gambling from your phone. You know, there's loopholes in that where people are still making mad currency off of that because they found loopholes. You got people that are data engineers that are utilizing what they do on their day job, but behind the scenes, they're doing on their off job with statistics for sports. And they're going based off of statistics to put in a bet to know like, hey, this has a high probability of happening. This is how much money I expect to make. I mean, it's really happening. So I don't know how you put controls on that. Kind of can't. But what I'm saying is these are the type of things where people found loopholes in the system. And that's the one thing you got to think about as far as sign of the times. Are you looking at it as from a terror perspective, or are you looking at it from an advantage perspective where you can find opportunity? Just like I explained with the call center. A lot of people are like, oh, we're going to lose our jobs. But if anybody in their right mind want to make billions, they're going to be on a rat race between companies trying to figure out the software system where you use Gen AI to wrap up a call and get people back on that call so they can keep talking all day. Why would you not do that? I'm good.
All right, thanks for listening to this episode. You know what? I know sometimes these episodes can run long, because Joe has a lot to say sometimes, like he had in this episode. But
Whatever.
if you're interested, but no, hey, we have we did just launch our newsletter, Above the Crowd, and part of the purpose of that is to kind of um, condense some of what we share here and just put it together in a format that take about, a few minutes to read. You can move on with your
Check
day.
it out.
So check that out. We'll have that probably in the description or something like that. But hey, as always, thanks for listening. Hey, take care. Be safe.
Later.
Gapstone.